Is 6 o'clock and time to start. Let the record show we do have a quorum. We're missing Ross Bradley. He should be in just a few minutes, we think, and then Lee Malcolm is not present tonight. Going to go ahead and move to reports, the May monthly reports. Mr. Probst?
Sure. I want to quickly introduce Les Russell, our new HR director. He's back here. Just started with us yesterday. We're glad to have him. He has a extensive background in human resources and project management on the corporate side of things, and is a Monroe resident and has been for many years. So we're glad to have him. He's going to be a great asset for the city of Monroe.
Welcome, Les.
Also, I want to go ahead and brief you on the transportation plan. You've probably you've seen that floating around. Chris, if you could pull that up to the middle so the audience can see that a little bit. It's got a lot of small writing on it, but later on we'll put it out back and you can check it out. But this has been the culmination of several months' work between the cities within Walton County and Walton County as well to put together priority lists, both on system and off system. That's on system for the state highways, and off system that's more local controlled roads. This runs the gamut from everything from major road improvements to traffic signalization, roundabouts, things of that nature. And the ultimate goal was to keep traffic moving through Walton County. But for Monroe's part, we've identified 4 major projects. You should have that before you on the map and also on this one sheet of paper. Just below Loganville, it says SR 138 at Spring Street, the intersection improvements. We've identified some short-term and long-term improvements, and we believe a combination of various things such as striping, a little bit more asphalt for some turn lane storage, some through lanes, things like that, can be done for around $890,000. Now, keep in mind, a lot of this will be state monies, not just city or county, but we're all going to try to partner on this to the maximum extent possible. Number 2, we have an eastbound on-ramp from West Spring Street to SR 10 US 78, and basically that's a loop to go eastbound, kind of behind Home Depot. That's something we've been working on for a couple years now. And the Department of Transportation seems interested in helping us with that project. And the county will also make that a big priority with the city of Monroe. That's pegged at about $1.8 million, not including any land acquisition costs there. Number 3 is US 78 SR 11 interchange improvements. That's the bridge up here on North Broad Street. It's not signalized. This is to install various signals at that bridge, which will be important in the future as that truck connector, that'll be the terminus for the truck connector, which will route trucks from 83 down to 11 South. So we have to have a good way to get trucks on and off 11 North. And then last, we've identified a potential Michael Etchison connector, and the idea is to keep traffic from backing up all the way out Michael Etchison, and then we could funnel that on what would potentially be a new road over to State Route 138. There's a lot more design and engineering work that needs to be done on that. That's just kind of a high-level project for us to think about in the future. So all those put together, just construction is about $4.5 million. Some of this will probably be paid for by SPLOST. Like I said, Georgia Department of Transportation revenues and some county revenues as well, however they can pitch in on these projects. The whole goal here is just for everybody to team up and like I said, keep traffic moving throughout Walton County. And I think everybody's done a great job of really coming together to put this transportation plan together.
Logan, you know my concern on the Etchison thing, so would you
Yes, sir.
talk a little bit more about what you think is going to be done out there?
Yeah, it hasn't been fully engineered yet, but basically this would be a little cut through somewhere around the George Walton Academy baseball fields. That would go west and then curve back around to an existing curb cut. There's about 2 existing curb cuts on 138. Of course, we have to go through parcel acquisition, etc., to make it all happen. And I know your concern was over at McDaniel Street. Would that funnel any more traffic over to McDaniel Street? I can't say that it would have a direct correlation, because really the point is to get a lot of traffic and current traffic and future traffic from other home developments off Michael Etchison back over to 138. And so hopefully it can go left if it's signalized later on, or potentially long in the future if that commercial tract across the street on that Tractor Supply side ever develops, we may have a full loop that goes all the way back out behind the hospital. That's just really long range planning there.
My concern, and I'll share it, I guess, with there, my concern is if we put something there to cut across from Michael Edison to 138, it's my belief that people coming from I-20 to Monroe are going to take that cut through McDaniel Street and come into Monroe. And McDaniel Street then becomes a major highway. Or people leaving from here, rather than fight the battle on Spring Street, you take McDaniel Street and take that cut through off of Michael Etchison to get to 138. I would just be, if anything happens to give McDaniel Street more traffic, I'm real concerned. I think it already has more traffic than we need. It's too much of a thoroughfare already, and it's not what was a neighborhood street is becoming a thoroughfare, and I think we need to turn it the other way around rather than increase traffic on it. So that's my concern on that one, and I think whatever engineering we do has got to be that in consideration. I just don't think we can afford to bring more traffic through residential neighborhoods. So that's all I want to share.
Good. That's all I have, just on that briefing.
Well, thank you. I know you've been working hard on that, and I also know that the state DOT says Walton County needs approximately $200 million in improvements, and we're not going to get them. So we have to be as efficient as we can, so we can get folks in and out and around Monroe safely. So thank you. I appreciate what you've been doing on that. Moving ahead, I'm at a loss here. We had finance. Are we central services or finance? Sorry, Chris. Central services, please.
Thank you, sir. Just looking over the numerical stats from April, everything's pretty consistent with the first part of the year and flows with other years. Avgas sales were at 101 transactions at the $3.99 a gallon. Brought in revenue of $10,558. You go down through everything else. PCAR transaction purchase orders followed pretty much in line with the first part of the year. Seal bids and proposals, we've got 2 out right now, one for electric distribution material and the other for GIS services for all of our different systems. Under information technology, you'll notice the phishing fail percentage. We, with the recent kind of cybersecurity issues that certain cities have had, we've started an in-house program to where we, once a month, send out essentially a phishing test to all employees that have emails. We were at a 4.2% fail rate in April on the first test, which sounds bad, but it's actually good when industry standards for government of our size is about 13%. Those people that fail that go through a training class, whatnot. We'll continue to do that month to month. We've got some other things up our sleeve that we're just going to continue to test our systems, and then we're going to train people on what to do, what to click, what not to click. That should help us stay more protected going forward. And then a couple notes on projects. If you've been by the library today, you'll notice that the colors dramatically changed. It was a dark green. It's going to a tan. That's, I don't know, about 4:30. It was about 2/3 complete. So over the next couple of days, should be completely finished. Childers Park, there's a lot more light in the park now because the first phase of the trees, which was about 3 dozen, were taken down and completed. The dog park's currently closed, fence open. We are sodding an area where patrons sit and mulching the areas too, where dogs run, whatnot. Installed a yard hydrant there for water so we can do that and then use it for other things. And then the airport would be a bit of good news that we found out this week from the DOT. Logan and I have constantly stayed in the ear of the DOT to give us more money, give us more funding for projects, and we've been aggressive when it comes to pushing forward projects and kind of shooting for the moon almost. And the reason we've done that is because when other projects fall and ours are there and ready and designed and we're already in the process of being able to apply for them, sometimes that funding comes to us, and the DOT are going to give us an award of an additional $500,000 to go towards the airport. So we'll be able to do some larger projects and different things, which we've already got drawn up and we've already discussed. So it'll be the apron rehab. We'll actually get to do the expansion. We'll get to do the striping of the new area of the runway, all of the ground ready and paving around the new hangars that were talked about and initial contract approved should be paid for with this additional funding. So we just keep working at it, and every day it gets just a little bit cheaper to get more done. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate what you've been doing at the airport. I hear a lot about that, you know.
Yeah.
Also, please tell Luke and Steve how much I appreciate their staying on us about cybersecurity, because that's very important to all of us. Are there any questions? Any comments? I think we're good. Thank you. Code Department, please, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief synopsis of the report you have in front of you. For the month of March, we had 28 code inspections. We wrote 34 permits. Had 15 new businesses apply for business licenses, and we had 12 that were closed. Some of those, again, like normal, are name changes and things like that. We had 81 payments for business license. We're down to about 53 outstanding at this point, which is still too many, but quite good compared to past years. We continue to get personal transportation vehicle registrations from time to time, so I guess there'll be more golf carts and other things running around town as soon as people get the weather break and the events to come to with them. The city marshal, he removed 31 signs from the roadway. He wrote 83 repair cleanup orders, investigated 3 tampering and utility cases, and wrote 8 citations. Historic preservation granted 1 COA for a fence, planning and zoning. Tabled a request at 911 North Broad Street on an expansion on the Wow Express Car Wash and Lube Center. 723 North Broad Street had a COA granted there. 302 North Madison Avenue had a request for a rezone that has subsequently been approved, but they had recommended approval for that as well. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions, Mr. Kelly? We went over this before coming downstairs. 13 demolitions this year?
We have 13 permits, I believe, and 10 or 11 completed.
That's
yeah.
excellent. Let's
Yes, sir.
keep that up. I know there'll be 2 more coming down. At least 1 will be coming down, scheduled for June 1st.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Economic Development, Ms. Crozick.
Good evening. A couple things to note from the report you have in front of you. We started work on the alleyway project that we raised funds for. We're through the first phase of it. We're hoping to have it completed, the first phase, for the concert this Friday. Most of it is installed. There's a new mural, and lights are going up too, so we'll have better lighting in there. The second phase, we're going to be doing, try to get some more greenery and work on the first half of the alley closest to Court Street. Already tons of people there taking pictures, and especially with proms, and so that's what we want to see, is people interacting with it and talking about it and getting more activity on that side of downtown for our businesses that are there. Farm to Table event was this past weekend. It was a sold out event. very successful. Don't have the numbers back yet for what it raised for farmers market. We think it's going to be even better than it was last year. We had 160 people is a lot of people to do a plated meal outside, but our chefs were amazing. Our volunteers were great, and we're really pleased with that. The citywide cleanup and the Great American Cleanup, we had a lot of people, and I'm sure Danny will be able to give a better report on what all they got throughout the week. The cleanup day was successful. It's fun. We went out, had good volunteers, got a lot of tires. Thank you, John and Logan, for being a part of that and helping us get all those things. And then a lot of residents did put items out that we didn't get to, and then Public Works went above and beyond to go pick that up and get that for the rest of the week. So I think we can start that trend every year. It will be really great for our citizens. We began planning for the July 4th celebration. And we've had some new businesses open. And the other thing I really wanted to point out, which I've attached on here, Nextsite is the retail recruitment company that we've hired and partnered with, and they came and met with us and kind of showed us what their data defines as our trade area. And I'm including it on here. It's all these pictures with the dots. What that is individual cell phones that they're able to ping and watch the traffic of consumers. So you'll see here the common daytime location, and that's downtown is where they're all packed in there, and then the evening location. And what they can do is determine travel patterns between those two, and then that's the red dots. And with that travel pattern, they're able to define really where our trade area is, which you can see it's kind of a different shape. It's not centered around the city. It's kind of shifted to the northwest, and that's where the majority of our customers come. So what they'll do is they've put together reports about these consumers within that circle, which that changes our numbers and reports. What we usually show is like the city and then a radius out from the center of the city, a drive time or just a distance. But with this is more accurate data to the customers and consumers that are already considering Monroe their commercial center where they go to. And so this is going to help us. And it's amazing to look at the numbers and see what a difference that makes when it comes to the things that we always talk about when recruiting retail, which is rooftops, median income, businesses that are missing that we have a market for, meaning we have dollars in this community that people are leaving to go spend elsewhere. And that's that last page there where it shows the gap. So those are dollars that people who live here already, shop here already, have the need to buy these items, but they go outside of our trade area to purchase those. And you can see there's a huge gap in full service restaurants, department stores, and you can just read through there. And that's a good report for us to have, because now we can go get those gaps. But I wanted you guys to see that and just know kind of what Nextsite's working on, and then they will be representing Monroe and meeting with developers at the trade shows around the nation to kind of talk about the retail that we'd like to see here. Be happy to answer any questions you have about that. And just want to remind you, our first concert is this Friday night. So
Thank
we'll
you,
be out
Sadie.
there.
Are there any questions? I have a couple of things. Sadie and I met this morning with a group called Hands of Hope that are looking at doing an all-inclusive playground, trying to find a way to work with that. They'll be presenting to the council next month. Farm to Table, did I hear there's going to be another one in the fall?
People have requested that. There are no official plans for another one in the fall at this point. We talked about eventually
shouldn't put
maybe
that out
getting
there.
there. Yeah.
Citywide Cleanup Day, threw my 16-year-old in a nice vest. She looked like a community service worker, which made a dad proud. I'll tell you, we spent 2 hours picking up cigarette butts. We have areas where you can discard your cigarettes, and it does not include the curb outside. So if any of you are smokers, or if any of you know smokers, please have them use those. It's not too thrilling to see that folks are just throwing trash on the ground. And I understand cars don't have cigarette ashtrays anymore, but be mindful that people live here. Other than that, I appreciate everything you've done, Sadie. Thank you. Brian Thompson, the telecom, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple items of interest. We finished the Stone Creek design. We did meet with the developer today. He may be phasing that in a section from the front to the lake and from the lake to the back. So we've had to make a few little changes in the design, but that's no big deal. Had our fiber blower training first of last week, and that went very well. We were real excited. We did about 11,000 feet of install in 6.5, 7 hours. So we're starting the installation of the micro duct downtown tomorrow. And I'll let all y'all know when we start doing the fiber blowing downtown, and come by and take a look at it. Have a MEAG transmission update. Logan and I, and Matthew before that, have been after MEAG to put another substation up north of town. I met with MEAG Transmission again. I do it every year, but I lobbied them for that. One of the reasons for that, so on peak days, we would have a hard time feeding the entire city out of one station. So a real, real cold day and a real, real hot day, we have to make decisions on what we do in the plant. It's just a load issue inside the ITS, and I think with growth up north of there, we'll be able to make that happen. The beauty of that is if we work inside the ITS, it's absolutely no cost to the city. They'll build the station for free, and that's what we're really pushing for. We had a new bucket truck. The truck that y'all allowed me to order last fall was delivered last week. We have started bidding out the bucket truck for this budget time frame, and manufacturers are telling me it's 300 to 325 days. So that's where we're at on that. Wayne Street, the police department worked with us. As I told y'all the other day, we got them changed. We have the one little area that has the apartments above the old rents to work with. Once we get those people scheduled, we'll be pulling poles, getting all that transferred over. I'm just trying to work with those a lot different than I did the rest of them, even though we work with them very closely, all the businesses. We could do a business at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning and they didn't care. Well, there's people that live in these apartments, so we're trying to work around their schedule. But we'll get there. The Pollock subdivision, we have just about finished transferring all our telecommunication services onto the new poles. Then we will start pressuring Windstream. Logan and I met with ECG last week, and they're going to help us with our pole attachment issues with Windstream. They have had experience with this in other cities, and they're going to start helping us just move Windstream along. A couple other items that aren't on here that came up last week in our meeting with MEAG. They have a couple of items. One was mentioned at the roundtable. Those of you that came to the MEAG roundtable will remember it, I hope. There's a portion in the MEAG report, yearly report, that has their engineering specs that was required as part of the contracts with the city. I get those engineering reports monthly. There's really no reason for that to be in the yearly report. So they will be giving us is it a resolution, I believe, Logan, for us to pass. Be very time sensitive. So once they get it, we hope to have it for next Tuesday. The other item is a bond issuance or bond issue. It's no more debt. It's no more money to be spent. We're just a little bit inflexible on how we can refund some of our existing bonds. They're wanting to change that to where if there is an opportunity to refund those bonds and save money, that they can move quickly. That is another time-sensitive issue. We hope to have that document by the end of the week to have it on next week's agenda, or next week's for a vote. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Have we reviewed lighting in Pollock subdivision yet on Springdale?
We're finished up. When we get that telecom out of the way, Lee will be going over there taking a look at night.
Perfect.
All right, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Thompson, finance, please.
No relation.
She wouldn't have you.
She would have said it by
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll go over briefly the financial status report you have in front of you. Our general fund revenues and expenses for the month of March year to date. Revenues are at 28.7% of the total amount budgeted. Our expenses are at 18% of total amount budgeted. That's for the general fund. Utility fund, we're about the same. We're at 28% revenue and 24% expenses for the year to date. And solid waste is at 22% total revenue budgeted for the year and at 21% total expenses for the year. So those are all in line where we should be about this time of year. One thing I want to point out on the last page of that is that the performance indicator report, our total number of abandoned calls that come into City Hall is the lowest it's been in the last 12 months, which is at 5%. So that is a good indicator that the call center that we put in place a couple of years ago is actually doing what it needs to do. They're trying to answer all the calls that come into City Hall and trying to get those distributed out to the actual area it needs to go, instead of rolling around to a queue, having those live people answer those calls. So that's helping. Another thing that we have been working on in the finance department this month is we're trying to implement some fraud protection tools with our bank. This will prevent us against check and ACH fraud to protect our accounts here at the city. A brief little blurb I'll read off to you is, according to the 2017 Association for Financial Professionals Payments Fraud and Control Survey, 75% of organizations experienced check fraud in 2016. So that's a lot of check and ACH fraud that went through organizations that we do not want to be a part of. To implement those fraud protection tools, what we're starting with is this week, we're having implement is Positive Pay, payee validation, ACH fraud filter, and payment authorization on all our accounts at the big bank that we bank with. What that will do is we'll send a file over to the bank every time we issue a check. That in turn, they look at every check that comes through on our account to make sure it matches that file when we send it through. So that way, if they send a check through that's made out to Beth Thompson and it comes back Beth Jones because somebody changed it along the way, it won't go through. That helps with internal controls, and also on the outside if someone tries to steal our checks and wash them and try to do whatever they do nowadays with all the fraud that goes on. It'll also help with ACH. We do a lot of transfers in between our accounts and different areas when we're in the finance department. It'll also implement some fraud filters on that as well, where we have to have a second level of authorization on those ACH, and also to make sure that anything that needs to go through does go through our account, that nobody can get a hold of it and steal anything in our account. So that's one thing we've been working on the last couple of weeks. Our Tyler software, which is our new software that we will be implementing citywide for finance, code, utility, payroll, and HR. They will be on site in June for code. So that'll be the first module that will go live with that our new software. And the final thing is Malden Jenkins, our auditors, have finalized all the audit numbers and our CAFR, and we hope to have them here next Tuesday to present that final audit and those final audit numbers and the final CAFR to you for approval. Once that's approved, we will roll into working on our annual PAFR. That's all I have. Y'all have any questions?
Are there any questions, Beth? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Glass, are you fire and police tonight?
Which one you want to do first, Mr. Mayor?
Let's go with fire.
All right. Fire department had a grand total of 234 calls for service, conducted 457 and a half hours of training. We were able to provide the public with 50 smoke detectors. I know you're aware of it, but now actually when we're going out on any kind of call to a residence, firefighters are making sure that the residence has a working smoke detector. We've also done training to actually install them and that kind of stuff. So that's been a good program for us. Something we'll talk about just a little bit later. We've been running a QRV for about 30 days now. When you look at this, we had 138 EMS type calls. 11 of them were motor vehicle accidents, which a truck would respond to because you don't know if you're going to have fire or whatever. But when you look at that, there would have been 127 calls that we've been able to use QRV, the truck, versus taking the big fire engine down the road to handle those type of calls. So, we're excited about moving forward with that program, and we are running it right now. Pending your questions on fire, we've done burnt down a building the other day. It went well. I had to leave before they actually done the burning. The real value for the fire department is we had a lot of our young guys that just graduated academy this year, got to do an entry from the top, how they would vent the top, got to do forced entry. So they got to do all that, and then they got pretty much a little fire science class when they ignited it. And so anytime that we're able to do that with a building and get in that live fire experience and it's just great training. Can't duplicate it any other way. Pending your questions.
All right, any questions? Tell, please, Bill and his guys how much we appreciate their work. I got a chance to watch most of that training burn, and that was pretty impressive.
Well, let me have one caveat on fire. Probably in the next 30 days, we're going to do a training event out at Gouda. We'll have that where we'll actually do an event. We're probably going to kind of have a gathering with the mayor and council invited, kind of walk everybody through the building, see what we're doing and see how we're going to train there. Let you have that experience, and then real shortly after that, we'll do our first training exercise on that building. That's been I can't give especially Bill enough data boys for that. We got into that project and had a contractor that was going to do most of that stuff, and he got a pretty good sized federal contract, and it got him pulled away. And luckily, Bill spent all these years in the Navy, and he's a good welder, knows how to scrape off rust off those ships. And the fire guys have just they've just done a super job in getting that facility put together. Really proud of their efforts, especially Bill's.
Well, tell them how much we appreciate them, please. You want to move into police?
All right. Police department had 3,463 calls for service, 1,676 calls to the PD. Had 480 court cases, conducted 451 hours of training, 52 Part 1 crimes, 49 Part 2. We arrested 96 adults and 3 juveniles. You can see the march. We had everything from Easter egg hunt to the car shows, road races. We sponsored the Boys and Girls Club Spaghetti Dinner. We had a busy month, and it stays that way until fall starts and slows down a little bit on PR type stuff. K9s are in their second week of training. The 2 teams. I'll push out some pictures to y'all in the next day or two of the K9s and the team training. Assistant Chief Watts and I will probably visit sometime next week or the week after and see how that's going. But it's going real well. The 2 dogs are very good looking Malinois, and it'll be a great asset to us. Pending your questions, sir.
Are there any questions for the chief? If you would, next week, make sure Bill and RV can join us. We'll have the GBI giving us special information briefing for the first 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. Who's that going to be doing the briefing?
It's Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Hillary Hewitt.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danny, solid waste?
Good evening, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm reporting for the month of March. We collected and disposed of 1,007 tons of trash and garbage throughout the city of Monroe. Over 151 tons of recycling, including 183 scrap tires. We had 14 customers deposit 5,336 tons of trash and garbage into the transfer station. We delivered 44 carts, 10 recycle bins, 1 dumpster, and we issued 9 cemetery permits for the month of March. And the last thing I got, I do have the stats for the Great American Cleanup, including Sage's report. We collected 14,080 pounds of trash, 139 scrap tires, and 1 junk car.
We only had one junk car.
1 junk. We actually had 2 that requested, but one of them didn't clear title.
I've been requesting my neighbor's car to be taken out, but no, they can't get it.
And that's all I have. Do you have any other
Thank
questions?
you. I appreciate it, Danny.
All right.
And I'm sorry, folks. Did y'all have any other questions for him? I just sorry to be remiss. Streets and Transportation, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Highlighting the report you have in front of you for the month of March. On the admin side, we rented out the community building 12 times. Our fleet maintenance division continues to perform preventative and corrective maintenances on our fleet throughout the city. 76 total work orders completed in that division. Our right-of-way crew is in full swing now. As y'all know, we've been covered up with rain. Right-of-ways have grained up and are growing very rapidly. Those guys are out cutting all day, making their rounds. And as they do, and hopefully the rains slow down, will become more of a regular pattern. They're having to spend extra time on certain areas, getting those sides of the road cut down to make it look a little bit better. But that crew, along with part of our street division, throughout the month of March, removed over 3 tons of debris and litter from the roadways. And that is just crazy to me to be able to get that much litter and debris out of ditches, off the side of the road in a month of working. And that goes back to your comments about the cigarette butts earlier. We really need to do a better job of taking care of that. Our street crew's currently out doing some patching on various city streets where we have some depressions that we're finding from this hard freezes that we had during the winter. I spoke about the wears on our infrastructure throughout the winter a couple of months ago. We're seeing some of those things surface now, and we're trying to be proactive in getting those taken care of. But we are getting into the paving season. Asphalt is being made pretty readily now at the Good Hope plant. We're able to get that on a pretty regular basis to get out and do some patching, which will lead right into our LMIG program. We got a bunch of streets that need patching before we can do that overlay in that program. Moving into our sign and markings division, we completed 50 units of work there and 48 in our building maintenance division, with various work orders throughout the city facilities. I'll be glad to take your questions.
Are there any questions for Jeremiah? Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Rodney Middlebrooks, water, sewer, and gas, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The water, sewer, and gas stormwater reports attached there on your tablet. If you got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those. I do want to give you a couple of updates. It's 2016 CDBG, 6th Street, all the utilities are complete. They're cleaning up and start curbing. 5th Street, half the water and sewer is in, and they'll begin the stormwater as soon as they finish that up. And then they'll move the curb crew over to finish the curbing. The Highway 11 to 78 gas relocation on the bridge here started today. The contractor got about 1,000 feet in, so looks to be, it's going to move pretty quick, so glad to see that. Also, the Alcovy gas project, we've started completing that. It's should be done 1 to 2 weeks. And then, as Brian mentioned earlier, we had the Stone Creek subdivision, the pre-construction this morning.
They started moving equipment in this afternoon, got all the silt fence installed, and they'll begin the grading and installing the sewer and storm. And we just got our results back from our recent leak survey on our gas. They did identify several streets that will need some attention. Steel mains have a lot of corrosion, those being Church Street from Hammond Drive to Eunesia, Bolton, Reese, Southview, and Olympia Way. So we'll begin over the next few months. You'll probably see us come back for material quotes, and some of them may actually require a contractor due to it being steel. And then the last thing was April 18th, we had our EPD inspection. It was for the water department, water plant, and our distribution. Everything went very well. The inspector actually commented, she said we were one of our top 10 systems in the state of Georgia, so glad to hear that.
Fantastic.
That's all I got. Got any questions? I'll be more than happy to
I got a
answer
quick
those.
question for you, right? Was they going around testing each individual house for gas? Cause somebody came to my house with a meter today.
That they're probably doing the meter checks on the corrosion on the meter set. That should be one of our guys.
It was.
Yeah, the leak survey is actually a contractor that comes in every year. We got our system divided up into fourths. We do a fourth every year, and then the business district gets done every year. But it's a separate deal.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Committee information, finance. Larry?
Yes, Mayor, we do have one item for the agenda tonight for the Finance Committee is concerning the replacement of the security access into the building for badges. So, Chris?
Thank you, sir. Talked about cybersecurity, now we'll talk about building and facility security. This building was finished, I guess, and opened in 2001, so our current security system, our door access system, everything is almost 20 years old. We haven't had the ability to really expand and to secure different areas of the building. Our entire card system is outdated to the point that we can't really control flow through the building how we want to. We don't know who comes in, who comes out a lot of times. And between Logan, Brian, myself, we've met with several vendors that could provide different solutions. There were a couple of locals that we talked with that really couldn't kind of expand. They could get us updated with what we have, but they couldn't build us for the future. And it doesn't just concern City Hall. It would be our water plant, our utilities warehouse. It even goes to Public Works, or different facilities around the city to where we can expand off of this system. It allows us to track any contractors that we bring in to where we can only allow them access certain hours, certain days. We know when they come in, when they leave. When it comes to our after hours, we know who are here, who's not. Even, just down to the simplest thing, when you have visitors in certain parts of the building that they don't have access to versus parts of the buildings that they do, and you can control that. Badge Pass was the company that we had great success with, and they had the best proposal as far as a system that provides us software, hardware, the entire expansive system that we can expand to the different facilities. They can control our gates at the utility warehouse, and then as we expand, we can use them for the airport, different things of that nature. And it was to replace everything that we have to get it to where it's an upgradable system that if we don't like their company, we can use anybody. But our badges, card, everything, whole kit and caboodle for City Hall was $38,080.22. That would be the top dollar. There'd be some things that we may or may not have to replace, but this gives us a kind of a do not exceed number. And just, it allows us total control, which is something I think in 2018 that we probably need and something that we can monitor far better. So that's what we're asking for approval for that tonight. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
The price of the $38,000, only includes City Hall, even though you said it could expand out to other places.
Correct.
This is not
This
right.
would kind of be the brain, so to speak, the control of everything to where we can put it in place and then we start adding different
So the
facilities.
cost to add to other places would only be, for example, a badge reader on the door, as opposed to all the controls which are already paid for.
Correct, because, and if you get to the other system, this facility has the most door entry points and whatnot. If you get to the water plant, you've got essentially one entry point that the public's capable of getting in. The utility warehouse, you've got 2 gates that may or may not remain 2 gates. The supply warehouse is 1 entry point. So, I mean, this building is gonna have 15 or 16 access doors, to whereas these other facilities total probably wouldn't have that many. So this is the software and everything that controls all of that. They've just kind of references, they currently provide security at University of Georgia, West Georgia, Georgia Power, Fulton County, the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, the Tanger Outlet Malls, Comcast. I mean, it's endless, universities throughout the Southeast. And it was by far the most impressive system and a very reasonable cost and actually less than what we expected.
Any questions from committee members? Do I hear a motion that we recommend this purchase to the full council?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass. We'll recommend this to the full council. That's
Thank
all
you.
we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I do have one other. I'm
Yes.
sorry. We did meet last week and reviewed all the partner groups, the recommended policy changes, and we spent a little over 2 hours going through those in detail for the rest of the council's benefit, and we will be recommending that next week for approval by the full council.
Great, I appreciate your coming in that night too. And that should zip through. And I appreciate it. Moving to Airport Committee, Mr. Garrett.
We don't have nothing tonight.
Thank you. Public Works, David Dickinson.
We do have some items, Mr. Mayor. The first 2 deal with the EIP road improvement, and the first one is the memorandum for the grant administration. Who's going to address that? Ms. Crosby?
Both of these 2 items go together for the EIP grant that we're applying for in conjunction with the Walton County Development Authority to extend road access in Piedmont Regional Industrial Park. And the Department of Economic Development at the state is also kind of leading the way in this grant process. So the first one is for grant administrative services, and you can see the attached sheet that shows everyone who turned it in, and then we had a committee review, and they have would like to suggest that we hire Allen Smith Consulting for the grant administrative services for the EIP grant. And the second one was for engineering services, and precision planning is who the reviewers recommend we approve for the grant engineering services. Any questions on this?
Did we talk about hiring actually grant writer on staff a year or so back?
Yeah, some time ago, and that's something we converted into an accountant position at the moment. So as far as writing, that's not in that forte. We may revisit that later on.
As a point of order, Mr. Mayor, those recommendations were developed by independent committees. Do we need a motion out of Public Works as well, or does it go directly to the council from the independent committee?
I would say, you're the attorney, I would say that it's in committee and this should be motioned in
All right,
committee member.
then Public Works Committee, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Little, Mr. Adcock, could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the both the grant writing services and the engineering services as presented.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Adcock. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on the motion?
Could you clarify? Well, let's do these individually.
them separately?
just to
All right, let's
make-
do
make
the,
it even.
administration first. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll be recommending that to the full council, Mr. Mayor. And then, on the engineering, I would entertain a motion to approve, precision planning.
Also move, Mayor.
Motion by
Chairman.
Mr. Adcock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Little. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye. All right, that's unanimous and will be recommended to the full council. All right, the next item is the North Broad LCI, testing contract, and who's addressing
I'll be
that?
happy to take that, sir.
All right,
This came about as part of the final prep for the North Broad LCI construction letting, which we expect hopefully within a month or so. We need to have materials testing as part of this project as requested by the Department of Transportation. Keck and Wood, our engineer on the project, put out a couple bids and really received one good responsive bid from Nova, and their cost for the full scope of materials testing is $18,925. And this will come out of SPLOST, and a portion of this will be reimbursable or count as our city's in-kind match.
all right. Members of the committee, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
To a maximum of the 18,000, what is it, 925?
18,925.
All right, is there a second? Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, that's unanimous, Mr. Mayor, as a recommendation to the full council.
Thank you.
And then finally, the intergovernmental contract regarding John Deere Road, who's addressing that?
Sir, I'll request that be deferred to another meeting. I did not get the contract back in proper form from the county.
All right, we'll defer it to the next meeting. That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Utilities, Nathan Little.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the approval of water treatment plant gutter repair. Mr. Bailey gonna handle that?
Yes, sir. Fairly easy one. The gutters at the water treatment plant, I don't know if you really look closer, about half on, half off. Where we had snow, ice, different things, the weight of it pulls it off, sliding off of a tin roof essentially. And then we've had some, I don't want to say major issues, we've had issues with the internal gutter system over the front door entry. We've had several people kind of take a look at it. Nobody could really come up with a true solution. We, however, through U.S. Communities, went back to the Garland Company that we've used on numerous projects around the city and have had great success with them. And I was happy to see that the company that actually won the bid, Veteran Builders, has done a fabulous job for us. And this request is for $15,986 to repair those gutters, pull them back up to the building, fix any seams or anything that had come loose during the whole damage of them, and then to completely redo the internal gutter system to keep the leaks out of what's a conference room and the lab, I believe, in the water plant, which is the more serious problem. So that's what we're requesting, to do that. External gutters, internal gutters, and then fix a couple of soffit panels that are falling off while they're here. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Is this one contract that be issued to Garland, or
Yes.
is it contracts to all those individual people?
No, the contract will be issued to Garland, and then they, through U.S. Communities, they're essentially the general contractors, the way it's set up through U.S. Communities.
So the 15,986 is to Garland?
Yes. with veteran builders being the low overall.
And this was a budgeted item.
It was the $150,000 budget allocation, if I'm not mistaken, was system repairs and maintenance throughout water distribution and water treatment. So just a portion coming out of that because we didn't have it in build and repair maintenance because it's something that's gotten worse.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we recommend to the floor of council the contract to Garland for $15,986.
Motion by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second? I'll second.
Second by Wayne.
Wayne, okay. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? We will recommend that to full council.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Next item is EIP 2008, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong place. Sewer service policy amendment. Rodney, tell us about that.
Thank you, Mr. Little. We've been approached by actually the next two property owners / developers. First one being Gerald Atha. I'm trying to pull it up on my. It's requesting. His property sits on Highway 83. Many of you are probably familiar with Winfield Place. It was part of the original design when he rezoned the property. Was it 4 phases? I think he had 4 phases. Yeah. So this part would have been the 5th phase to the subdivision. He didn't build it. He's selling the property. They're requesting to tie into our sewer. As many of you know, 2005, 2006, we changed that policy to where it had to be either in the city limits or had to be in the electric territory. This piece of property, the sewer runs right through the middle of it, which would allow easy access to it, all gravity, no pumping. So it'd be an easy to accomplish. And so just asking council to consider making that exception.
Will this be any expense to the city?
Now, when the developer develops, he'll be responsible for all the sewer mains, tie-in, and everything, and just hand it over to us, and we start collecting money.
And water and gas already in that area would be servicing that subdivision.
That's correct.
Chairman, I see this. I'm gonna make a motion. We approve this recommendation. It's adjacent to the existing subdivision we already service. It's all gravity, no expense to the city, and I think it's a smart move for us to expand it.
I think, thank you, Mr. Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. It's a further discussion. I wanted to say that my only concern about granting these, that if we decide to grant these, that maybe we need some guidelines. I don't think that they should be just open up. I think they need to be tied to a project, not necessarily assigned to the parcel of land or whatever. Each one needs to be approved based on the project that it's being brought before us. And I think you've looked at this, Rodney. This project is acceptable within the things that we've discussed as to the service and the way it will work with the system.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's my comment. So
with that, and I would I agree with your concern. Would it be appropriate to modify my motion to make it contingent upon the development as proposed of a subdivision on this area?
I think so, if you would do that.
If that would satisfy, I'd be happy to make that modification to the motion.
Second, still.
And the second's confirmed. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? We will recommend this then to full council. And the next one is a service policy.
Okay, this is the same situation again. It's 92 acres. It's just past the previous piece of property, a little bit closer to the sewer plant. It's currently zone county A1 agricultural. They want to, I believe it's 195 lots, I believe. Is that correct? 184, I'm sorry. 184. And the drawings are attached there. Same situation. Sewer line, gravity line runs right through the middle of the property. It is a large trunk main. It's actually a 36 inch, if I'm not mistaken, so more than able to carry what they're proposing to tie in. So same situation again. Just asking for your approval to allow them to tie in, and I guess again base it on the fact that as far as this particular development.
This development would be just a short distance from the one we just talked about.
That's correct. Probably a quarter of a mile at that.
And you're getting closer to the sewer plant.
That's correct. It's water sewer service as well, or water and gas, I'm sorry.
How many, what is the lot size on this development?
They may be able to answer that better than I can. I haven't really looked.
I mean, this is a bit vague in their presentation versus the previous one.
Showing more than 7,500 square foot, 184 lots.
This may have to go through a county rezone.
Well, it would, because it's zone agriculture land.
Yes, so I
Yeah,
just
being
want to make
A1.
that point clear. So I would also like to condition that on, pending county approvals as well. And if you look at the entrance, it exceeds the 100 lot maximum, so there may be some
Quite a bit.
design changes here
Right.
once that goes through the county process.
So I make the motion with the same contingency I had on the earlier one, and also in this one, that it obtains county approval for rezone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We will recommend this one to the full council. I want to ask though, Rodney, in this area that I don't think that, now that we're considering these, I'd like you to put together some guidelines. I don't think there needs to be necessarily an overall policy change, but some guidelines to who could be considered. Because I know there's been mentioned we just can't really accept any of this with pump stations and
Right.
some other things. And so if we just had some guidelines to know and to help anybody applying that might want to apply for an amendment to the basic policy.
Okay. Yeah, we work on that. No problem.
Now you're going to tell us about the watershed protection plan?
Yeah, many of you remember this one. This started about 4 years ago. It is finally complete.
Yay.
So what you got in front of you, EPA, EPD's requesting the council, mayor and council approve and adopt the recommendations. Starts with page 23. Basically, we've got 4 or 5 creeks that we'll have to sample from here on out. If you go back to page 29, it gives some of the recommendations, one being sewer line, stream crossing inspections, which we already do, street sweeping, which Jeremiah's already doing. The public education and outreach includes storm drain stenciling, some things that we've already doing, and also the stream cleanup events. So really the only additional from what we're doing now is the creek sampling. If you go back to 35, page 35, it gets into the funded side of it. Basically what we're looking at is about 19.5 a year. And then 2 out of the next 5 years, we'll have to bring in a biologist, got to do with fish counts and all that stuff. Those years, the budget would be increased to $30,500. And so this will be, and basically what will happen is in 5 years, we'll renew, and it'll just continue. So not an MS4 yet, not all the requirements yet, but the ball is kind of set in motion, so we'll see where it goes from here. But
So not a Water First community yet?
no, but this does gets us a step closer.
Okay.
So yeah. So what we'll do, the lab doesn't start till next year, so we'll give us time to budget, add the additional money for the budget for stormwater to accommodate the sampling and all. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Is there a motion to approve the plan?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the watershed protection plan.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Adcox, second by Mr. Bradley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We recommend approval of the watershed protection plan to full council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Thank you, Rodney. Public safety, Mr. Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first is approval of out-of-state travel for police department, Chief Glass.
Thank you, Mr. Adcock. What we're asking Mayor and Council approval of is the travel of Sergeant Green, who does our IT. He does our record management system. He does our Axiom cameras. He does our TASER weapon systems. Also, we're looking at the new building. We will go to, or our plan now is to go to in the interview rooms, we'll have a Axiom cloud-based recording versus how we do that now, which would be a better way than what we're doing. The training is in Arizona at their headquarters. TASER doesn't farm out training. They'll do this once, sometimes 2 times a year. With the amount of Axiom products that we use and just where technology is taking law enforcement, I think this will be crucial training. I ask that you support it. It's we have the money in the budget to do the training.
Are there any
I'll-
questions?
I'll offer a motion to approve this expenditure.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Malcolm, second by Mr. Ross Bradley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We recommend this to full council next week.
Thank you for your support.
The second item is the purchase of the quick response vehicle.
We've talked really a little bit last month and this month. We've Fire has worked out operating a standard SOP, or as they call it, SOG, a standard operating guidelines for it. We put it in effect actually on April the 2nd using a piece of equipment that we have. The old Squad, if you remember, we were going to use it, but we used one of the pickup trucks. We're using the Squad for other stuff. I sent out just a copy of a pass on, I think it was dated April 26th. Just in that one night, there were 13 calls for service. 11 of those calls were type calls that we were able to do with QRB. And when you start thinking about the mileage on those 11 calls, the fuel consumption, and actually just general safety of the public, I don't know, I think that pumper weighs about 17 or 18 tons traveling up and down the road versus a 1.5 ton pickup truck. Those safety things. We've looked at several different options. I talked with Mr. Probst, and what we see as the best option is kind of piggybacking off the lease agreement that we currently have with Enterprise, with the police department. And I'd refer to Mr. Probst on the dollar amounts and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so on that note, we had budgeted roughly $35,000 for the purchase of a vehicle, but in preservation of cash flow in a fairly low interest rate market, I'd recommend just doing the lease purchase over 3 years for this vehicle. That's really it, just to save a little bit of money up front.
What are the main capabilities of this vehicle?
It's what fire, when the first responder become the craze, I guess, or the standard back in the early 90s, fire started evolving from, just fighting fires to hazmat, a multitude of med assist vehicles, extractions of people out of car accidents. I mean, it's just evolved. It'll have the capability of doing most any type first aid type thing. We can check blood pressures. We can check. It's the stuff that we're running a pumper to now that involves everything from going helping get Miss so and so or Mr. so and so that's falling up to a fall, somebody that's having a stroke, somebody that's having a heart attack, calls that Med 1's going out on. We're responding in that, which we do anyway, but we're doing it in a vehicle that's a lot smaller, a lot more efficient. It preserves, one of the big things it does is preserves our $600,000 pumper. That's our main access that we run up and down the road. And with call volume, our newest one's got almost 40,000 miles on it now. And when you look at the ones that we've had since the 90s, or that were 1996, 97 models, they're around 70, 80,000. So you can kind of see the use of this new one versus that. And it also cut down on running that second truck out that's already got high mileage on it or got high age on it.
Don't y'all have two 150s over there now at the fire department?
No, we do, but they're not designed for this, and this will be specifically for that mission. You got a chief's truck, and you got a truck that the captains use that go out. Two different functions.
So you saying the chief got a truck now?
Right now, we're using that truck. Yeah, he has a truck.
Well,
I mean, we've done that.
When I asked him, he said he had a truck now.
Hmm?
So y'all changed his truck until that?
He's doing it until we get this truck, yeah. That truck, his truck could go back into use. We were gonna use the squad, but there was issues with that. So we put his idea to put his, to do this, to run it until we got this truck in place.
And how many times did you use that in the first month?
Well, you use it on all med calls. There's not a, I don't have an exact number. Like one example I sent you, that was 11 times on 13 calls.
Right.
Well, when his truck goes out, the pump truck has to go as well, right?
No, this truck, no. He would go out on fires and that kind of stuff. He's not going to deploy every time QRB would.
Right.
What Bill done and what we done, we were going to use the old squad truck to do this, to get it started, to get practices in place, and quite frankly, start saving our number one fire apparatus. He said, let's use the truck that we got that's cabbed out, da-da-da-da-da. And we're using it now to do this until we put this vehicle in place. That's what we're doing.
Any questions from anybody on the committee? Do I have a motion from the committee?
I would make a motion that we, send this over to full council, the quick response vehicle purchase.
Have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley,
Second.
second by Ms. Malcolm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will, recommend this to full council next week. That's
you.
all we have on the agenda, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Thank you, Chief. Planning and Code, Ms. Malcolm.
Unless Mr. Patrick has anything, I don't know of anything other than your wonderful report. You've been working hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Economic Development, Ross Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unless Ms. Crosby has anything, we don't have anything on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Moving into items of discussion, we have some upcoming public hearings. Mr. Probst.
Sure, we'll be talking about this more in depth, next week at, we have a rezone for 1050 North Broad Street. As you see there, the application shows for approval, but we'll continue that conversation next week.
I have a question. Did we not just rezone this to B2
This was
about 2 months ago?
an adjacent parcel.
Oh, okay. I knew it was close.
Yep.
If you want, I'll try and explain that
Go
a little
ahead.
better.
Go ahead.
There was a adjacent parcel that was also B2 that they thought was already B3, so they just rezoned the small parcel next to it. So now they're coming back to complete the total of the rezone that they should have done at one time.
Because they did,
Oh,
I think we asked that question. We thought it was B3 already.
Everyone thought it was B3,
Okay.
including the
I
applicant.
remember that. Mm,
So they're fixing that now.
okay.
Then next we have a rezone for 603 and 606 Alcovey Street. That'll come before you next week, Patrick, if you have anything to add at this time.
Nothing tremendous to add. I just would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. We continue to recommend for approval based on your recommendations and conditions. That's pretty much where that stands at this time. Any questions?
Right. And next on the agenda, the 1050 rezone in response to the public hearing up above. We'll be back before you. Number 4, we have the application for beer and wine package sales, Harry's. That'll be discussed next week. Number 5, application spirituous liquors and beer and wine on-premise consumption for Fusions. Again, that will be coming before you next week for further discussion. And then we have a second reading for the zoning ordinance code text amendment number 5. Which, included the animal, language. Patrick, do you have anything to add to clarify from last time?
Just that the edit that was requested is included and will be before you next week.
And, you good? Okay. Moving to the first reading of the speed zone ordinance, Mr. Still.
Anything to add?
Let's just go have the grammatical error fixed from the last time it was presented. That's it.
Thank you. Then we have looking at Main Street program, is that where we are?
Yeah.
Main Street program, Ms. Crosby.
This is the annual memorandum of understanding between the Department of Community Affairs and the city, and it outlines what we have to do to participate in the Main Street program at the state level And then that also gets us our national accreditation as a Main Street community. We do it every year. It's time to do it again.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Fireworks agreement. Look,
Yeah, so as part of the Walton County Bicentennial Celebration, the city of Monroe will be sponsoring the 4th of July annual fireworks display. Well, we didn't have it last year, but it's back this year. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be requesting that East Coast Pyrotechnics Incorporated provide fireworks for the show. They were highly recommended by our fire department. The contract is for $15,000. This was budgeted specifically for this event, and the show is expected to last approximately 16 to 20 minutes. So it should be a pretty good show, long enough to captivate everyone, and not so long as to lose everyone's attention span, as some of those shows go.
Okay, I have a question. If it rains,
If it rains, we have a rain date for that Saturday, July 7th. And if it rains on that, then we'll figure out plan C.
move that to a First Friday concert too.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any questions?
That's all there.
Need thank you, everybody. Need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Garrett, second.
Second.
Ross Bradley. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.